Welcome, friends. Episode 11, right, Millzer?
Yeah. Episode
11 of the Preferred Experience, the podcast, hosted by yours truly, Will Barrett and Stacy Mills, the Millzer. You know, it's a hectic week around here. School's starting back up, football starting back up, dogs and cats are living together. It's mass hysteria. And we had thought we are not going to be able to do a pod this week. It's just too much going on.
Yeah, we had a couple of options. We were trying to line up to do the podcast, and they kind of fell through. And then we're like, okay, this is the insane time. This time of year is the first couple of weeks right before football season and everything. And so I'd called Will up this morning, and I said, hey, look, let's just get on. Let's do like a little quick 5-10 minutes. Say, hey, look, guys, we're going to take us a couple of weeks here and get football season underway, and then we'll come back with some new content. But then somebody walked in the door.
Yeah. I walk in, and lo and behold, there's a guy in the building with his finger on the pulse of Alabama high school football, Caleb Brooks. He's standing in the building.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, Caleb, are you about to go somewhere? And he's like, maybe. And I was like, well, sit down. Let's have a talk. Yeah. So, Caleb, thanks for spending some time with us today.
Hey, yeah, no, thanks for having me on. And, Stacy's been telling me about the podcast, about the setup that he has. So, we were in here looking at it, and you happened to walk in. And look, I'm always down to talk some high school football. So,
well, I tell you, anybody that pays any attention to high school football in the state of Alabama, and has a Facebook account, has absolutely seen your face, because you've made the rounds across the state. You've talked to almost every coach imaginable, in all sorts of places, in the weight room, in their office, in the field, wherever you can get them. And you sit down one-on-one and you learn about every program. And as far as aficionados on high school football, I consider you one of the tops in the state, if not the top in the state. And now you're with a new organization. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I'm with Average Joe Sports Talk, and they got going about 5 years ago. Bo Starkey is the guy who started it. He actually went out and did the Matter Day football game that they had where they played against IMG Academy out in California, and he went live on YouTube, and their YouTube page just kind of blew up. So he got back here, kind of talked about what they wanted to do. He actually told me he started out just doing college sports, college breakdowns, talking about Florida. He was a big Florida fan. And then some people said, hey, you ought to cover the high schools around here. Like, we don't get much coverage. We're never talked about on the Birmingham news channels, stuff like that. So he started doing that, got really in with Fife, which was a good time to get in with Fife, obviously, here over the last couple of years. Him and Coach Benefield are really good friends, and they do a show every Saturday called Breakfast with Benefield that they record and then put it on the YouTube page. And he just started going around the northeast part of the state doing, high schools kind of like I was. And so when I would go up in that area, they would always come along with me and help me out and introduce me to coaches, things like that. And so as they've continued to grow, I made some moves in my life. I've got a fiance. We're about to get married.
Oh, and, congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And so we found a house up in Calera, and so I was kind of looking for something that would kind of keep me around Birmingham a little bit more and stuff. And so I jumped on with them, and we're doing some coaches shows. I just got done this week with the first couple. We did Howling with the Huskies with Helena High School, and then Keeping Up with Oak Mountain Athletics. And we're going to do some other schools, Briarwood, Spain Park, Vestavia, Calera, Montevallo, some of those schools around there. So we'll be doing some weekly shows with their athletics, not just football. It's going to be volleyball, cross country, girls flag football. We're going to talk with them. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's been a fun move to come over here and work with these guys here recently.
Oh, that's very cool, man. High school sports has become, over the last maybe 10 years, just as far as its hype and listenership and viewership has just really kind of exploded in the state. You can see the numbers up all over the board, and I think it's a credit to people like you who do what you do to expose this, to shine light on it. It's one of the last few bastions of just pure sports, and people play because they love it. And we've lost that in the college ranks now with NIL. Everybody's looking for the best deal, but in high school, it's still like that vein of purity that runs through these kids. You think so?
Especially here in Alabama, where high school football is so big. I think that when you get in some of these places, we talked about Fife. You got Maplesville that's right up the road here. That's a small school that's had a lot of success, and I think when you look at those type of communities, they don't have the big 5-star or 4 stars that are coming out of there. So their kids really are playing for that city, playing for that high school. And so I think that, you're right. High school sports is kind of the last where you're just playing for that school, you're playing for that place, and it has nothing to do with money and advancing yourself and doing that type of stuff, which, it is what it is. The college game had to evolve in some way, the amount of money that was coming in and that type of stuff, but it has now taken away from the purity of what we all kind of grew. I mean, even what I grew up with college football, where you had guys that wanted to go to that university because they grew up. Peter Woods from Thompson's a good example of that. He talks about growing up an Alabama fan and all. If you really grew up an Alabama fan and cared about Alabama, you'd be going to Alabama. Instead,
correct,
he's chasing money with NIL deals, going to Clemson, all that type of stuff. And so you just kind of can see how it's changed the game.
Absolutely. You mentioned Fife and you mentioned Maplesville, 2 devil schools, right? And we have one in our region as well, as you well know. Yeah. We don't have to name them Central Phoenix City, but when you give your team a name like the Devils and you put a pitchfork on your helmet or put a red horned devil head on your helmet or pants or whatever, you got to expect a little bit of trolling in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
We get our chops busted for trolling the Central Phoenix City Red Devils by calling them things like the Princes of Darkness, Beelzebub, Luciferians. Deal with it. That's your name.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You don't have to be the Red Devils. That's just the thing. I mean, that's a little rant about that. I'm a little salty that we get.
Yeah, we may or may not have been contacted by certain school officials about certain comments made on the air.
I was like, my response is, if you have a problem with Scripture, then that's your problem. That's not my problem. Because it is scripturally sound. This is names for the devil, right?
No, but you do.
I mean, they have an inflatable devil that flies around the town.
The hot air balloon. It's a devil head.
Hey, when y'all go down to Phoenix City, though, is that not one of the nicer stadiums that you get to go to and do stuff out of, in y'all's opinion? I mean,
I'll say this. Tim Lorman's a great guy.
Yeah.
But I hate that place.
Well,
it is a fine.
Yeah.
It is great.
We played there when I was in 7th grade or 8th grade. I can't remember, but I remember going in the visitors' locker room and there's carpet on the ground.
Yeah.
There's chairs for it looks like a college locker room.
It's very
really
nice.
Impressive.
Yeah, their facilities down there. The press box is kind of got is showing its age. It's been around for a while, and then of course it's always our most hated enemy, the sealed in press boxes. We just can't stand those. But as far as I got to go down into the locker rooms last year before game, and man, it is amazing how nice that place is.
Well, the entire complex at was it Garrison
Garrett
Harrison Stadium with the baseball field, the softball field adjacent to it. I mean, really, really well done.
Also, I mean, y'all do a great job with y'all's production of the games and all that type of stuff, but their student production that they have,
it's next level.
It's unbelievable.
It is definitely the top one in the state.
When you get the students to participate, and they've got all their little tech moves and their knowledge of what those graphics can really do, and they're pushing those cards to the limits. I mean, you're untouchable.
Yeah,
and they've built a program. What, of 120 kids?
Yeah, he said that they had 120 students that they pull from, and it's a competition to see who gets to work the football games.
And we are working toward that at Prattville High School. It's been a very slow process, very slow process. But a lot of it has to do with funding, though, and that's starting to turn a corner here.
Yeah.
So we're excited to see what the next 3 to 5 years will unfold for that program.
Slow process and not frustrating to me at all.
No, Millzer's never thrown something against the wall. I never broke something of talking about it. But I do feel like better times are ahead for that program, for this high school, and for the school system in general. Now, speaking about the high school football scene, we call it, well, let's say college football scene. 7A football is almost like college football in this state.
Especially in two certain regions. I mean, the one that y'all are in and then obviously the one up in Birmingham, those two regions have separated themselves from the other two.
Correct. And it is a mind-numbing siege just trying to make the playoffs in those regions. So what do you see as maybe the ones to look out for in 7A?
Well, I mean, obviously Thompson. They're going to be really, really good again. And as long as Coach Freeman is there and as long as they continue to have the athletes at the place that they have right now, they're going to be able to beat people. They're really good up front. And right now they're just kind of at a point where they're reloading. You start winning games. Prattville went through it. When you're winning games, people want to come there. You don't have to go recruit. People talk about recruiting all the time. I remember talking with Caleb Ross. He's like, look, we would beat Jeff Davis, and kids are like, hey, coach, I want to come there next year. I want to come be with, so what are you supposed to say? Like, nah, don't come here. Don't be,
right.
So it's funny you say Jeff Davis. I got a great story about Jeff Davis. It was a junior varsity game, and I was just wearing a Prattville polo shirt, just like I'm wearing right now. And I'm just hanging out on the sidelines and everything. It was a JV game. We beat them pretty good, and then the game, player comes up to me and goes, "Hey coach, what I got to do to come play with y'all?" I was like, buddy,
you got to find a closet.
Can you work a camera? That's all I can help you with.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that's where Thompson's at right now. Hoover was at that point too. Now, was there a time period when two-a-days was going on and stuff that they were maybe going and grabbing some guys? 100%. But Hoover got to the point where it was, hey, number one, Hoover was a really nice place to go live, and it, people were flocking to that area. Mm-hmm. And then just number two, when you're winning football games at that level, kids want to go be a part of that. And there were some places in Birmingham, especially the inner city Birmingham, where they weren't winning games. And Montgomery was kind of going through the same thing when Prattville was really good, and that's why you had those two. So Thompson's at that level right now where they don't have to recruit. Just kids feel like, hey, if I go there, I'm going to get recruited and I'm going to have an opportunity to win a state championship, which is ultimately what everybody wants to do.
You mentioned the two-a-days Hoover, the version of Hoover that was MTV's two-a-days, and they looked completely unstoppable in those days. But they couldn't beat Prattville.
No, they couldn't.
They don't show that on MTV.
No, they actually. They couldn't though. Look, when those two are rolling, it's always good to have someone else. And right now, it's been Phoenix City and Thompson at the top of 7A. It's been what Prattville and Hoover were at that time, and it's going to continue to rotate. And unfortunately for Prattville, because they're in the same region, Auburn's up there too because of the number of kids at the school, and now you have Keith Etheridge there who has won a lot of state championships himself, and they're going to be right there. I think they're one this year to watch out for because I think they're going to have a good opportunity. And there's athletes there right now. The whole entire city's blowing up, and it's not the same school system. I grew up in the Auburn school system up until my sixth grade year, and it's not the same. I worked for 2 men in a truck, and we'd drive around town, and guys would talk about something like, look, y'all don't even, this looks nothing like what this town looked like. And, we didn't have this here, 5 years ago, and now it's one of the biggest things in Auburn. So, the whole city's changed, and because of that, Auburn's kind of at the point Hoover is where you're going to be good no matter what because you're going to find 44 players that can play a first string and a second string, which, people don't realize that's the most important part of 7A. You're going to find 22 starters. It's the next 22 that can back those guys up, the depth. That's where you win games, and that's what Thompson's done a good job of developing. Hoover's there, Auburn's there, Phoenix City's there, and Prattville's on the way to getting there, I think.
Well, Thompson's, they got the 44. They also got the 66.
Yeah.
No, they just be real about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a...
Well, and what helps Thompson, too,
train.
is we went to Thompson's practice about 2 weeks ago. The amount of coaches they have out there, that's the biggest thing. People don't realize, Mark Freeman's great. He's only as good as who is helping him and who he can trust to go and do this drill over here while he's working with the quarterbacks, and who he can trust to take the offensive lineman while he's working with the quarterbacks or the second, whatever he's doing. So I played for Danny Horn at Benjamin Russell. It was the same way. We had a great assistant coaching staff when I was at Benjamin Russell, and that's why we were able to win a lot of games and play well because he could trust Tal Morrison to take me over and go work on offensive line stuff, and that we were going to do things the right way, and Wes Tate to go over and do the defensive line, and Shundell Russo to take the line. When you can do that, when you're not having to do everything, that makes a big difference. And, that's what every coaching staff has to strive to get to. That's what, I was talking about Oak Mountain. That's what he was talking about. They don't have the assistants right now that he wants in place. He was at Central Phoenix City, and he said, that's the difference in us and Central Phoenix City. We had plenty of coaches. We could do all this stuff with guys at Oak Mountain. I'm having to kind of be over everything just because we don't have enough guys that I can trust to go out there and do stuff.
Yeah, back in the day when we would go play in the Hoover Select 7-on-7 tournament, everybody used to make fun of Prattville because Prattville, on the sheet, on the roster sheet they had, there would be more coaches than players.
Yeah.
for Prattville, because you'd have like 22, 23 players, and you have like 25, 26 coaches. So,
but Bill Clark and Jamie Dubas understood that too. I mean, that's why they had so many on board. And then when you have good coaches like that, you have coaches that want to be with those guys. They want to be on those staffs. So right now, everybody wants to be on Thompson's staff. They want to go be with Patrick Nix at Central Phoenix City, and so that's why they're able to get those guys.
There's no doubt about it. Now, you travel all over the state. You talk with coaches from 1A to 7A. Do you ever get in a situation where you need to get like 6 or 7 minutes in, and this coach ain't giving you nothing? It's like trying to pull teeth to get him to talk.
Yeah, no, that players too. The players, that's kind of the toughest one. I'll tell you one of the funniest stories. I was at Gardendale. They had a running back that just graduated, and when he was a sophomore, and we first started doing the interviews and Players of the Week and all that, he won Player of the Week. I mean, he ran for like 270 yards. Like, sophomore's pretty good. So we go up there. I meet Coach Eads. He's got the kid with him. We're walking to where we're about to go do the interview, and this kid's just full of energy. I mean, bouncing around Coach Eads, and he's talking a mile a minute and all over the place. So I set up the camera. We go to sit down. I kind of tell him, hey, here's how it's going to go. I'm going to introduce myself. Then I'm going to introduce you, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, all right. Start the interview. I ask the first question, and he just sits there. And I get nothing. And I look at him, and he's like, I don't know what to do. So I stop it. And I say, it's all right. We're not live. We're recording. So let's do it again. So we do it again. Ask the first question. Sits there again. Gives me nothing. And so literally we go through it 4 times, and he was like, I don't know what to say. And I was like, dude, you were just talking to Coach Eads and me and running all over the place. Like, just relax and be yourself. And I ended up not getting much out of it. It was like a 2.5 minute interview of a lot of yes, sir.
Yeah.
No, sir. So,
we get a lot of head nods when we're on radio. It's like they can't hear your head.
Yeah,
nodding.
exactly.
When you get in a situation like that, probably the best thing to do is just keep recording and tell them that you're starting over, and just talk to the kid, get them to start talking.
Yeah.
I mean, I've pulled that stunt a couple of times. Just, don't let them think that you're going, and when you get done, go, oh yeah, we were recording that whole time. Yeah.
It is amazing though how, you put a camera on and they know that they're being recorded and being on, and it just changes everything about them. Because I've never been that way. I was one of those, when the camera turned on, I just kept talking and kept doing my thing. But I've always wanted to do this stuff too. So
right, and that's not just kids. That's all the way on up.
Yeah.
I mean to elected officials who are in front of the camera all the time. But when you get one-on-one with them, and they're like, sure. One word answers. I'm like, come on, let's roll a little bit more, give it a little more. But it's something about when that red light comes on.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to watch, I think, as I do these coaches shows, because we're only doing 2 of them live on a location with Helena and with Oak Mountain. And the other ones, I'm just going into the schools like I was, and then we're going to edit it and put it out. But I'm interested to see as the season goes on, if Oak Mountain maybe doesn't have some success early, if Helena maybe stumbles a little bit early, how the demeanor of the coaches kind of changes, during the year. Because obviously, if you're not having as much success, you're just not going to be in as good a mood as the season goes on.
Of course. It's the interviews get shorter as the season goes on.
Exactly.
Having a lot of success.
all this excitement. I've had them hit me up, which is a good thing. But hit me up. Are we good to go? Are we blah blah. All that will kind of die down if they don't have as much success. Which I think Oak Mountain is. They're going to have a chance to be pretty good. They're starting to figure things out at that school. They're not a very old school. They hadn't been a program for too long, and I think they're starting to really kind of figure things out there. And then I think Helena's going to. They've been really good in 6A for the last couple of years, and I think they're going to continue to be pretty good with Coach Busby up there.
And they're kind of off the radar right now. What are some other teams you think that are off the radar that are going to surprise a lot of people this year?
I think that are you talking about in any classification?
Well, in any classification, but mostly the uppers, but any classification.
Yeah. In 7A, right now it's just there's 2 regions in 7A. You can't, until someone from the Huntsville region and someone from the Mobile region proves anything to somebody, until a Theodore beats, a Phoenix City and Auburn or Prattville in the playoffs or something like that. It's just hard to count on any of those as sleepers. So, depending on what Prattville can do this year, I think they're a sleeper. I think Opelika is a team at 7A. We were talking about them before we went on live. they're coming up from 6A, but they've been playing 7A level ball. I mean, and their school's big enough to be 7A. They're going to have athletes there. And so I think watching how they compete, I'm not saying that I don't think Opelika's moving up and winning a state championship in their first year as a program this year, but they're a team that Prattville's going to have to worry about in order to get into the postseason this year because they're going to be really good. And they've been testing themselves with Auburn and with Phoenix City and, some other 7As that they've played. I mean, they play Callaway, Georgia every single year to open up the year, and that's one of the bigger schools over in Georgia as well.
Yeah, Tank Bigsby in Callaway, Georgia.
Yeah, and they beat him.
Yeah, they beat him.
So that tells you about that. And then, in the North, Chelsea's, I think, going to really struggle moving up into that region up there.
It's a death trap.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
it's a death trap.
But I'll tell you, the team to really watch for in that northern region is Tuscaloosa County. With Weingarten moving over there from Auburn, he's going to be in year 2, and I think that just the pride he's put back in that place. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and they've painted everything. They've put stuff in there to make the kids show the kids that they care and. That they're putting something into that program, and they've got enough kids and enough athletes up there at Tuscaloosa County to start beating some people and making some noise. So,
you mentioned Coach Weingarten. That was what happened. What happened to Auburn and Coach Weingarten a couple of years ago in the state championship was the most painful thing I've ever watched.
Yeah.
At any level in any sport, when you have 26 seconds to play and you're up 16 points. Was that what it was?
At 9. No, they're up 9.
Up 9 points. Two possessions. 26 seconds to
with
go.
With a backup quarterback in for Thompson.
Right.
Yeah.
And it got taken away from you. Lost the game.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I was doing that game live with Randy Lee and Brett Pritchard. I'm from Auburn, grew up in Auburn.
Yeah.
So about a minute to go in the game, they're in the process of taking their knees, and I'm talking about, man, this is a great win for the Auburn community. They've never won a state championship. You can look across the way and you can see the excitement. And I'll never forget, they had 2 different student sections. They had one on this end, one on this end, because how big the school is. This one ran down to the other end over here and was celebrating with them. Well, you had some players that ran over the fence, started celebrating, and the next thing you know, the punt gets blocked. They're in the end zone. They get the onside kick, and you kind of just look around. I remember you being in the room too. You kind of look around. You're just going, they're about to win this ball game. You had that feeling. Thompson's about to figure out a way to win this thing, and
And
sure
Auburn,
enough, they win.
Auburn probably had no business being in that game.
No.
I mean, Thompson had them outmatched. And
I was eating. We were eating at a restaurant.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that story up.
Yeah, we had an Auburn parent walk up. She's like, "Hey, do y'all think we can keep it close with them tonight? Do you think we can keep it a game at halftime?" We were like, "It's going to be tough. I mean, this Thompson team's pretty good." And then you got to give Auburn credit. They came out and they punched Thompson in the mouth that night. I mean, nobody gave them a chance, and they out-physicaled Auburn, and they outplayed Auburn for, what is 48 minutes? So for 47 minutes and 30 seconds of that ball game, they outplayed Thompson and still lost the ball game.
Unbelievable. And as much good as Coach Weingarten and his staff had done in that team, in that system, in that community, in that high school, I mean, his name went to mud in 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And
he had to get out of there.
Totally not fair. Totally unfair. But it had to happen. He had to go.
Yeah, they needed a fresh new start. Yeah. They needed a whole new staff. Just because it traumatized that community. I mean, I remember going, back around Christmas and going around town. People knew, what I was doing and all that stuff. And they just came up to me. They were just like, "I just can't believe that happened. We thought we were going to win."
It was on Sports Center.
They made it my senior year with Rashawn Evans and some of those guys that they had that went on to play Intro Allen, that went on to Georgia State, and they made it that year. But they kind of knew going in, we're not going to beat Hoover. We're not going to be able to play with them. And Hoover beat them 30-3 or something in the state championship. So this one I think stung a lot more just because they
had it.
They didn't know going in how it was going to go, but then once you kind of get to that point where it's like, hey, we can win this, you get that hope, and it just was ripped from them.
Tragic.
Looking across, I'll never forget the image of looking across the way. They had been so excited, they're jumping, and then it's just everybody standing still. Kids are standing still after the field goal went through, and they didn't move. And the worst part was that was during COVID. So the AHSA had made these masks. Everybody got a mask. And one of them said state champions, and another one said state championship. And that was for the runner-up. And they were down there handing out the masks. Auburn players, they took them and threw them off to the side. They were like, we don't even want these. Quit handing us these. I know a guy on the HSA staff, and he said, we were starting to kind of question if that was a good idea or not at that moment. So, but it was good. The HSA does a great job with those events, Super 7, the finals, all that stuff.
All class.
They help make those events big, and I think people in this state don't understand. I got a buddy that worked in media here. He went off to Iowa and worked out there last football season, basketball, and now he's come back here and he said, look, it's way different here. I mean, the way the events are put on, the amount that people put into it, that type of stuff. I mean, it's insane. I mean, when Opelika played Hoover that year in the state championship down in Auburn, I'll never forget that. I mean, it was 40,000 plus people in there. You had people from Auburn High School that were coming to Jordan-Hare just to cheer against Opelika because they hate each other so much. And people from Phoenix City were coming to cheer against Opelika. And it was insane. I mean, they almost filled up the lower bowl at Jordan-Hare that night. And outside of Texas, you just don't see that in any other states. Yeah.
And, even in those big games, we got 40,000 people watching this game, and it's at Bryant-Denny or it's at Jordan-Hare. It still feels like a mausoleum, like empty, because it's a massive stadium. But that's changing now.
Yeah, no, and the kids have talked about that. I've talked to them. They're like, it's a great experience to play there and stuff. But then you kind of look around, and you realize how many more people show up on a Saturday to watch the college football games than are showing up to watch your high school games on Friday night.
When you got the 1A teams played in there's 3,000 or 4,000 people there.
Yeah, if that.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like not a state championship game.
Yeah.
So
that's where I think the stadium in Birmingham helped a little bit this past year.
Moving it to Protective Life Stadium.
Yeah.
I think is a huge deal because that stadium holds about 40,000.
I wouldn't mind it being there every single year, but I know it's not going to happen because Alabama and Auburn's not going to let it.
Yeah,
get off their campus.
It's too big of a recruiting tool.
Yeah.
For lack of that's.
But if you put it in Protective Life and you fill the place up, now it's crazy.
I mean, the Chalkville and Hueytown game last year.
Was
now, it took about 2 quarters for the
traffic
place to fill up because they weren't prepared for it. I mean, there were security workers telling them, like, man, we hadn't seen a crowd like this for UAB games even. So, we didn't really know how to handle this. And people didn't know where to park. And I mean, so you had people parking long ways away. And so I remember at the beginning of the game, I was looking around, I was like, man, I'm disappointed. Like, I thought it was going to be a lot more full. And, next thing you know, about midway through the second quarter, there was 22,000 people in there and it was loud and it was a lot of fun. And then the game lived up to the hype last year too. I mean, it basically came down to Chalkville kicking a ball off the front guy's face mask on a kickoff and them recovering it, and that's what won them the state championship. So
I love those broadcasting those state championship games in Jordan-Hare and Bryant-Denny. I mean, there's just absolutely a bucket list item that we've been able to do. But I'm a big fan of those games moving to a smaller venue. Mm-hmm. I think it just does so much for the kids, so much for the fans, so much for the sport in general to see a sold-out stadium for a state championship game.
No, I definitely agree. If you look at baseball this past year, every baseball coach will tell you the atmosphere at Jacksonville State was way better than any game that they played at Riverwalk or any of that type of stuff, just because there's way less seats at Jacksonville State. The way that their stadium's set up, everything's right on top of you, and it's set up for a great atmosphere. When Trinity played up there, Trinity brought a ton of fans and filled up. I mean, they pretty much had every chairback seat filled up. Because, the night before they played, so Piedmont's 30 minutes up the road from Jacksonville. Trinity's coming from Montgomery. The night before, I guess some people were late getting off work, getting up there, and so Piedmont packed out the place, had all the fans, they had momentum, they won the game. Well, the next day, the Trinity people said, no, we're going to do something about this. And they were there it was like 8:15 in the morning for a 10 o'clock first pitch, and they filled up the whole entire place. And, I mean, it really made the atmospheres there better. So I agree with you. If you can have it where a little bit closer confines and people are more on top of each other, not as spread out like you see at Bryant-Denny, Jordan-Hare, it just makes for a way better atmosphere.
Well, we're looking forward to the atmospheres getting back to pre-pandemic levels this year. I think the first time since that whole thing started that we're able to resume business as usual. I mean, even last year, you couldn't really do business as usual. There were still some precautions in place, but we're pretty much full go this year. Yeah, no, I mean, we're full go, and I think everybody's. You don't have people, even last year, you had people questioning, still like, should I wear a mask? Should I do, and I think now everybody just is ready to get back to. Enjoying the games. And I think you're going to even see better crowds this year because you're going to have people that are a little bit more willing to go to games and stuff like that. And, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I think, you've asked me about sleepers and stuff. I think 5A and 6A are the most open classifications that you have to win a state championship. And I think Chalkville's probably the favorite at 6A. Mm-hmm. I don't think 5A really has a favorite. I mean, I think Pleasant Grove could get back to win it this year or have a chance to win it like they have the last couple of years, but there's not like a main favorite at 5A that I see. And then I think in 4A, I think Montgomery Catholic's going to possibly run away with it. I couldn't believe they didn't win it last year.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Unbelievable. They had the team.
Well, they beat Academy like 42-0, earlier in the year. So it's hard to bounce back off after already doing that once. And then, the year before they had gotten to the 5 game. So they were already probably looking ahead to, we want to get back to that state championship game. And they looked over Montgomery Academy. And then it turns out Academy had about 5 or 6 key guys that were injured in that first game that played in that second game and made a big difference. And then I can't believe that they blew a 33-6 lead in the state championship.
No.
That was incredible last year.
I tell you all the time, these high school kids, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't matter who's recruiting them. It doesn't matter how fast they can run. It doesn't matter how much they weigh, how much they can bench. They are one bad text from their girlfriend away from having the worst game of their life.
Yeah.
That's what makes high school football so intriguing. Anybody can fall apart on any given night. These are kids.
Yeah.
And they're hyper emotional.
And 2 years in a row, you've had Montgomery Academy and then Montgomery Catholic blow big leads in the state championship to lose a state title against 2 powerhouses in Piedmont and Fife.
Right.
And so, then now I know those 2 people up there are really happy to separate. Piedmont and Fife, they were having to go through each other to get to the state championship. Now Fife moving back down to 2A, and they've got a chance to get back to dominating.
Oh gosh, Fife and 2A is going to be a terror.
Yeah, because they tore it up at 3A. So.
So Pike Road, what are you going to see out of them this year? What do you think?
They're going to be good. They're going to have athletes. I heard that the Rogers kid was transferring to Catholic, and so if that happens,
Katie
that'll kind of change some things. Yeah, I don't know if that's a done deal, but was told by someone that he was looking at transferring over to Catholic to team up with Jeremiah Cobb. So that would make Catholic even more dangerous if that did happen. And that would take away from Pike Road because he made a big deal. I think last year...
You mean Jeremiah Cobb, the Auburn commit?
Yeah.
War Eagle, right?
Hey, he was a good get for Auburn. I watched down, I'm doing Dadeville games. I'm going to do all Dadeville football games on Friday again this year. They tore up Dadeville last year, and he was a big key in it and just ran through them. And Dadeville's got a linebacker that's a Division I linebacker that is going to have opportunities to go play at, Troy, UAB, Western Kentucky, those type of places. And, he made him look silly last year, and he was one of the only guys to do it. So he was really, really good. And they beat Dadeville like a drum. It was like 51-7 at halftime, and then they won the game, I think 67-7. So
if you got Cobb and another weapon like Rogers, goodness gracious.
No, because that's what happened. I think Pleasant Grove put so much into stopping Judkins and the hooks at quarterback. All of a sudden Rogers came in and they didn't have maybe a plan for him, and he's getting to the outside, and they had, so much was going inside, but the other 2 that you got him going to the outside, and it just, they didn't have a chance to stop him.
No.
I feel for Pleasant Grove. To have 2 heartbreakers the way that they did in a row, with losing to Central Clay the way they did and then getting beat the next year by St. Paul's where you're up 21-10, and then St. Paul's keeps the ball for 12 straight minutes on offense.
Right, an entire quarter.
Yeah, I've never seen – so to have those and then you make it back, you're excited, you think you're about to avenge all that, and then just to get your brains beat in, that was tough. So
very tough, very tough. Well, man, this has been a great conversation. I'm glad I walked in on you talking with Millzer because we wouldn't have had this otherwise.
Yeah,
I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, but our paths never quite crossed, and as fate would have it, today was the day.
Today was the day, and it was a perfect day for me. So,
and before he gets out of here, I got to get him on record because I'm kind of doing a behind the scenes campaign here. Is Cam Shanks being shafted from the All-State selection last year one of the most egregious leave-offs that you've ever seen in high school football?
Yes.
Terrible.
He was a stud last year. Prattville's not the team they are without him.
No.
He made the team. There's different guys like, Benjamin Russell just had a guy come back named Malcolm Simmons, and he's a 4-star recruit. Yeah. He went over to Georgia last year, and he's coming. If he's there last year, they went 3-7 with Blackwell. They're probably 5-5. He individually makes that big of a difference, and that's what Cam Shanks was for Prattville last year.
You've got to have a game breaker, and Shanks is a no doubt game breaker. And for him to be left off of that list was pitiful.
He sets the single season record in receptions, yardage, and he's one short of the touchdown in only 11 games. Yeah. He didn't play a full state championship run like the previous yardage and reception record holder did. He did it in four less games at Prattville High School on 7A level.
Yeah. Again, and
200 yards over 200 yards against Hoover, over 200 yards against Central Phoenix City.
and they know he's good, and so they got him covered with safety over the top. I mean, he's basically in double coverage every game.
No, that you know, like what he just said, 200 yards against Hoover, 200 against Central Phoenix City. Like, I would understand that if he maybe just didn't show up in those games. You know, those games he got held to 60, and it's like, well, in the biggest games he didn't. He showed up in the biggest games and still didn't get the notoriety. So,
what do you got to do? You got to be in Mobile or Birmingham, I guess.
Yeah,
that's the key.
I mean, you know, we say that with a kind of a smirk, but it's the truth.
No, it is.
The coverage in Central Alabama is very lacking when it comes to high school sports, and I mean, the advertiser does what it can, but it's not part of that AL.com.
Their hands are tied too.
Yeah. There's the AL.com network has a stranglehold on the information throughout the state, and it's a void right in the middle of it. It just really is.
I will say the Montgomery Advertiser does a decent job, though. Each week they have stars of the game. You know, I mean, they do a good job of at least giving you a coverage of what kind of went on. And you know, then they're teamed up. Them and the Tuscaloosa News are under the same umbrella, and they do a good job, too. I mean, it's all set up the same. But it's just not to the level. You know, everybody knows about AL.com. And they know about those national or the statewide networks. And if you're not on those, then you're just not getting.
You're not getting the run. You're not getting the run you need.
I'll tell you what I'm interested in watching in this region with Prattville this year is how the extra game can help or hurt Prattville or anybody else. You know, I mean, just having that, you know, losing or winning that one game, how can it affect the season? You know, I mean, because we hadn't. The Mobile region just had 9 teams in it, but nobody's been paying attention to that region much. So this region is going to be paid attention to a little bit more. And I'm really interested to see if there's one, you know, does it help an Opelika get in late? Does it help a Prattville get in late? You know, maybe it takes a while for them to get going. So, and does it make it where some of these teams can look at it and go, hey, well, we have an extra game that we can, you know, we can wait, or not wait, but, you know, we can be a little bit patient with this team and see if they get a little bit better as the season goes on and make a run at the end of the year.
Right. So. The season lasts a little bit longer when you got a 9-game region.
But
9-team.
The flip side of that is you're looking at Central, Auburn, Opelika, Prattville, Enterprise, and maybe even Dothan. They maybe even improve some too.
And
Lee. All competing for 4 spots. Yeah. I mean, realistically, those are your teams competing for the 4 spots.
And you know, it'd be crazy. I'd love to see, what if you took the ones that are going to finish 5 through 8, what if you took them and matched them up with the Mobile region in the first round of the playoffs? What would the record be?
What would happen? I mean,
you're probably still going 3-1 probably at that.
Yeah, I think
least.
500 at best. 500 at worst.
I mean, perfect example last year, the Huntsville region. You got James Clemens. They go undefeated through the regular season, and then they lose to the 4 seed.
Bounce.
Yeah, Oak Mountain beat them pretty handily. So I mean, it just shows. I mean, when you face that level of you see it every year in the SEC. When you watch college football, when you go through that gauntlet and then you play in Oklahoma, and Notre Dame, or something like that, it's just not the same.
You just run right like
you're used to something different,
like the proverbial stuff through a tin horn, right?
No, yeah. I mean, but it is. I mean, that's what it's been here recently until the Mobile and Huntsville areas catch up, which I don't know if they're going to be able to catch up. It's 2 regions right now in 7A, and they're 2 fun regions to talk about.
Yeah, they are.
Keep up with. And
they are. Never a dull moment in those 2.
No doubt.
Unless you're playing Thompson.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of dull moments.
Yeah, a lot of dull moments.
Yeah, they have the exciting game every now and then.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Last year, it was that they dominated their way through.
Can anybody challenge them in that region this year besides Hoover?
No,
just honestly.
Yeah. I mean, Hewitt maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say
could.
Last night, I was going to mention this earlier. I can't think. I apologize. I cannot remember the gentleman's name that has the 7A ALL football Twitter feed. What?
I don't know his name.
Man,
I love that feed.
I apologize.
Yeah,
I apologize, but he had him and Kyle Parmley and from AL.com and a couple other folks. They were on last night on Twitter doing a live little chat talk and everything, talking to everything. They're really there's a lot of people looking toward Hewitt as being they could shock everybody up there, but
all they need is a little defense.
Hey, look, you got to find something to talk about in the preseason. You know, I mean, and it's not a knock on Hewitt. I like Coach Floyd a lot up there and all that, but until it's done, that's the until it's done.
Yeah,
you know, it was that way with Thompson and Hoover.
Yeah,
you kept saying, "Oh, here's Thompson here," but until they beat Hoover. you're not going to take them serious. And they beat Hoover that year, and they hadn't looked back since. I mean, outside of last year, where then Hoover acted like they won the state championship, and they had to meet up again. And
you're going to see them again, and it's not going to be the same.
What was it, 49-10?
Yeah, something bad.
Semifinal game.
Yeah. Well, Caleb, Average Joe Sports Talk, how do we find you?
It's on Facebook. You can look up Average Joe Sports Talk on there. You can look them up on Twitter, Average Joe Sports Talk. Same thing on YouTube, Average Joe Sports Talk. And then you can find me on Twitter at Caleb Brooks 22 and on Instagram, Caleb Brooks 28. And then I'm on Facebook as well, so you can go search my name, and you'll see a picture of me and my fiance on there. And so you can add me as a friend and keep up with everything that's going on. And I'll be doing a lot of stuff with the schools around Birmingham. And then we plan to keep it going on into the winter and into the spring as well, with, boys and girls basketball and wrestling in the winter. And then in spring, you got so many options of sports. We'll probably just do a big athletics thing, where 1 week we're with golf, 1 week we're with baseball, softball, track, and kind of move it around. So I'm excited about it, and it should be a lot of fun.
Well, I want to hit on a little something before we get out of here. You clearly see why Caleb's my go-to guy when it comes to high school sports.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Should be everybody's go-to guy.
This is not even what he's born to do. He's not. This aspect of it is not what he's born to do. And I'm gonna hurt your feelings a little bit, Will, because he could come for you.
Come on.
This kid has got a bright future in play-by-play. He's tremendous doing play-by-play, and he'll be doing some games this week. Or for next week at Crampton Bowl for the state radio network. But you ought to hear this guy call a game.
I have. Super talented.
Yeah.
Super talented. And hey, you're better than me. You're on the upside. I'm on the downside.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. No, I do. It's weird. I think back when I was younger, you talk about being born to do something, or, what you grow up just loving to do. And I would sit in my room at 8 years old and play the college baseball 06 video game and broadcast the game, or I'd sit there and play the football game. I'd mute the TV because I'd get pissed off with something that Brad Nessler or Kirk Herbstreit said in their little generic thing, and I'd start calling the game on my own and acting like I'm, I was an Alabama fan, so I'm acting like I'm Eli Gold. And then with basketball, I'd act like I was Chris Stewart, and I'd even try to imitate their voices. And, so I don't know. I've always loved doing this. And I remember riding with my dad down the road, going back and forth from Auburn to Alex City, and we were listening to Bill King. He had a sports talk show that was on Sirius XM every single morning that we listened to out of Tennessee. And I said, Dad, does he get paid to do this, to get on here and talk about, football every day? And he was like, yeah, he makes some money off of it. And all right, I know what I'm doing in my life. I'm going to go after that. I want to, if I can get paid to talk sports, and I want to do something like that.
It's a pretty nice gig.
Yeah.
But maybe you can get over to Alabama and convince him to consolidate baseball, basketball, football under one guy.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous they don't do that. Come on, Eli.
Well, it is going to be consolidated this year, with no Eli Gold calling Alabama games.
Is that right?
Season. Yeah. No, have you not seen that?
I have not seen
He's
that.
in the hospital. Eli
Really?
Gold. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's having health issues, and he's at least out for the first half of the year.
Oh, wow. So is Chris
probably
Stewart
out for the people that are in the know say he's probably never calling another Alabama football
Really?
game. He's pretty sick. So
is this
it'll be
time for Chris Stewart?
Yeah, and then you have to look at with Chris Stewart. He's had health issues. He almost died a couple of years ago. So how can he handle this? Can he do all of football season play-by-play, then go right into basketball and then right into baseball? And
wow.
So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that goes with Alabama. And then they have Roger Hoover there, who's kind of the backup play-by-play guy, but he's a Tennessee grad. He loves Tennessee. If you go on his Facebook, anytime he's at Tennessee, calling a game, he talks about being home. So I don't think he's maybe the guy long-term for Alabama's future on radio. No. So I'd love to try to get in somehow.
Bro.
Hey, I'd love
next step.
That would be a dream.
Well, I hate to hear that about Eli. He's a legend.
Yeah, no, he is. He I didn't know this. Did you know that he is a year younger than Nick Saban?
I did not know that.
Wow.
Yeah. You would not guess that.
No,
I would guess.
That's not a knock on Eli. It's credit to Coach Saban, I guess. But
those little Debbie's keeping him young.
Yeah, no, I guess so. Because I did not know that until I looked it up the other day. Because I was telling someone, I was like, he's in his 70s, so you're going to start having something. They're like, he's not in his 70s, buddy. He's in his 60s. And I was like,
wow.
What? So, yeah, he's a year younger and took over the Alabama football job, I think, at 35 years old, and has been doing it for 33 years. So
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I can actually. I remember when he took over. I knew him because my dad was such a NASCAR fan back then. I every Sunday the radio was on and Eli Gold was on.
Yeah,
that's where I knew him from. Then he had to go to Alabama. Then I didn't like him. No. Just kidding.
I was always intrigued by how he said 3. You never noticed this. He rolls that R. 3.
Okay.
3rd down and 3 from the 33. Eli Gold every time.
I guess I hadn't noticed that.
As long as we were winning the game, I didn't mind him saying it. But when they were whooping us like normal, it got annoying.
I'll tell you, we don't even listen to the TV broadcast at my parents' house. We have a radio thing where we can sync it up to the TV broadcast, and we listen to him and do it that way just because, I think anybody would rather listen to the Homer broadcast.
Of course. Of course. We get criticized. We get criticized by the AHSA all the time for being homers on the Pratt broadcast. It's like, well, of course
the
we are.
Broadcast, yeah.
Of course we are. I'm not going to agree with anything that goes against Prattville.
Well, it's like for me, I'm a Benjamin Russell grad, and if I do a Benjamin Russell game, there was going to be some bias there. My dad's athletic director there. My brothers played there. I played there. I grew up wanting to be a Wildcat. So, if you think I'm just going to be able to unbiasedly call a game with them, it's just not going to happen.
No, absolutely not going to happen.
And I wouldn't expect that from y'all. And look, it's like when I listen to an Auburn football broadcast, I want Andy Burcham to be biased. I want Stan White to sit there and complain about the officials. Like, that's how you should see your team. It is. That's the way that if you care enough, and that's one of the knocks people have with Eli Gold is I think Eli Gold is an Alabama fan now. He didn't grow up an Alabama fan.
Right.
He wasn't in the Bear Bryant days where, so I think that's one of the knocks on him where when Chris Stewart's calling like a basketball game, you can hear Chris Stewart grew up an Alabama fan and cares about Alabama. So.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a difference.
You did say you listen to Stan complain about the officiating. He does that about 90% of his talking. Yeah,
and I probably need to be careful because we're actually trying to get him on as an advertiser for this strategy. But he's a good guy. I met him and he was really nice that day, and he does a good job on there too. And it's always good to have someone like him who can be long term. Alabama's gone through a bunch of different color commentators here recently since Stabler left, and it's good Auburn's kind of had one guy that's been a staple right there being the color guy. So.
And to be sure, he does complain about the officiating a lot, but he's usually right.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of times
he's right.
Officiating, and look, we need to be, I think with officiating, we're way too hard on officials. We
nonsense,
see it.
Caleb.
Yeah,
nonsense.
We just see, especially with baseball umpires, I'm really hard on them, and I'm like doing travel baseball. But I've even had to be careful because there's not a lot of options out there.
No.
It's not like there's a backup option for this travel baseball thing that would be better than this guy. So
they're not making a whole lot of money each game.
Yeah, so
they got to love what they do to be able to put up with all that.
And how many times are you watching a game on TV and you see a hold live? There's times where you don't see it till the replay, and then you're sitting there going, how did they not see that? Well, you didn't see it while it was live either. You were watching something else. So you can't expect this one official to see everything that's going
in the end zone.
Greatest hold never called of all time that cost us the game. I'm not bitter about it, though.
And it's Auburn has the greatest illegal forward pass of all time, too, to win the 2013 Iron Bowl. So.
You think that was an illegal forward pass?
There was only 3 linemen, 8-9 yards downfield.
That's a stupid rule anyway, Caleb. That shouldn't even be a rule.
Well, the ball was 30 yards past him. It didn't.
Look, 6 men on the line of scrimmage. Stupid rule. And illegal men downfield, ineligible receivers. Why can't they all be eligible? I want to know why. And there's got to be a reason.
That would be a game changer.
Hey, that would
yeah. We just put 11 rabbits out there.
Ultimate football.
Yes.
You can do it like Ultimate Frisbee where you throw it forward and you're
Everybody.
stopped, and then you can have somebody going deep, just keep running plays.
Everybody's eligible.
Yeah.
I think that's Australian rules.
Yeah.
And if you want to put 6 men on the line, if you want to put 1 man on the line and put everybody behind him, that's your problem. You're going to lose that way. Why are we getting penalized for that? Man. There are things after watching football for 40-something years that I still don't understand. And those are 2 of them right there.
You're talking about Australian football. As crazy as we think football players are, which I think, if you're playing the NFL and stuff, there's some craziness. And you just like if you're fighting the UFC, there's some craziness in you,
right.
Boxing, all that. The toughest sport out there is rugby. Those guys are
no
insane.
doubt.
I've got a buddy of mine that I grew up with. He's playing rugby right now. There's no shot I'd be doing that. They have no pads and just run through each other. And
the ball is not round, and it's not a football either. It's just something weird.
It's like a big old egg in your hand.
The smartest kid that has ever probably come through Prattville High School is playing rugby for Harvard now.
It's true. President McQuiston.
Yeah.
Really?
Future President
rugby?
McQuiston.
Yeah, Will McQuiston's playing rugby at Harvard.
Hey, you were talking about interviews. That's one of the best interviews that I've ever had is McQuiston. Yeah, 100%.
Did y'all talk about international politics and stuff?
No, it was a lot of sports actually, but he was real. He could answer any question and he knew how to talk to you, and it wasn't that sitting there 5-word answer of just no. that's it.
You don't get scholarship by Harvard not being able to talk.
I can't believe he's playing
interview.
rugby though.
Yeah.
You got to be insane to do that. I'm sorry.
But, he's playing rugby at Harvard.
He's going to be a neurosurgeon. That's I think that's his specialty that he's in up there. And he's playing this one sport that probably breeds concussions more than any other.
Not him though, because he's playing rugby at how many Alabama kids are up at Harvard? I bet he is just mowing through people.
That is true. Yeah,
little
he's playing
Bostonian
kids that were playing New Jersey high school football and Nebraska high school football.
Probably playing flag.
Yeah. So no, you're right.
Nothing against flag; they live longer.
Chip Powell wasn't available this week because he was attending a poetry festival in Hoboken, New Jersey. So now we bring you a classic Poetic Justice.
Welcome back to another exhilarating episode of Poetic Justice with your host, Chip Powell. I will have to say two things. I was late last week. I went too long, but when you love poetry like I do, sometimes you do that. I was going to announce my co-host. He couldn't make it this week. He's actually at a poetic conference down in Florida this weekend, so maybe he'll come back with some new ideas. But today's poem comes from the poetic mastermind, Robert Frost, another 20th century poet. Today's Fire and Ice. I'll go ahead and I'll break this down because it's a very short poem. But some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But I've had to perish twice. I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Wow. It's so deep. It's so deep that most of y'all in my audience don't have a clue what this means, so I'm going to explain it to you. He wrote this right after World War I, obviously a very short poem, and to break it down in my terms, Robert's just saying, all right, man, the world's going in tomorrow, man. How are we going out? Fire or ice? I mean, which one you reckon? And he breaks it down a little bit more than that, but that's how I break it down. I mean, he just says the world's going to be destroyed someday. And fire symbolizes greed and ice symbolizes coldness in relation and hate. But he does say the world is bound to be destroyed one day. But I hope this doesn't darken your day that we're talking about this, but people are talking about the end of time, and Robert Frost did this in 1920. Unbelievable. Thank you for joining me.
This is Coach Donny Burnett, and here's today's Motivational Minute. Probably one of the greatest speeches of our generation. It happened on a cold night back in 1980, Lake Placid, New York. Today's Motivational Minute comes from Herb Brooks. This was the second intermission speech, pregame speech, before the U.S. hockey team went and played the Soviet Union. Great moments are born from great opportunities. And that's what you have here tonight, boys. That's what you've earned here tonight, one game. If we play them 10 times, they might win 9. But not tonight, not this game. Tonight we skate with them. Tonight we stay with them, and we shut them down because we can. Tonight, we are the greatest hockey team in the world. You were born to be hockey players, every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. I'm sick and tired of hearing about what a great hockey team the Soviets have. Screw them. This is your time. Now get out there and take it. And as you all know, the U.S. went on to beat the Soviet Union 5-4 with Al Michaels' great call of, "Do you believe in miracles?" And then the next night they skated against Finland and won the gold medal. This is Coach Donny Burnett, and that's today's Motivational Minute.
This has been fun.
Yeah,
It's been
enjoyed
fun.
it. I appreciate y'all having
We
me
need to
on.
wrap it up, and I really appreciate you coming on. Good
Yeah.
luck, Average Joe Sports in Gadsden, Alabama. Check him out on Facebook, Instagram. Caleb Brooks, thank you for your time.
Sir, appreciate it.
For everybody listening, thank you for listening to the Preferred Experience Podcast, episode 11. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, share it on Facebook. And until then, Millzer, anything?
Nope,
For the good of the group, thank you, Caleb Brooks. Till next time, good night, God bless, and as always, go Lions.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. Man, Will, love you coming in, pinch hitting, and dude, you hit a grand slam tonight.
Well, expect nothing less from me, Daryl. I'm the best.